On the 18th of June 1982, a security guard beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London looked up and saw a man hanging from the scaffolding, his feet just brushing the surface of the Thames at high tide. His name was Roberto Calvi. His pockets were stuffed with bricks and $14,000 in cash spread across 3 currencies. His shoes were missing, never found. His passport was fake, made out to a man named Gian Roberto Calvini. The world would call him God's banker, and his death would become one of the most contested murders in modern history, a case that courts have ruled on twice and still never fully answered. In Italian, the Freemasons who shaped so much of Calvi's rise were sometimes called Frati Neri, Black Friars, and the name of the bridge itself would haunt investigators for decades, a possible signature left behind by killers who wanted the world to understand exactly what had been due. Calvi had risen from a quiet Milanese family to become chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, a bank founded in 1896 explicitly to serve the Catholic Church. He built a hidden empire of shell companies stretching from Panama to Managua, borrowing from his own overseas subsidiaries to buy shares in his own bank, artificially inflating its stock while hiding the entire scheme behind the signature of the Vatican Bank itself. Under Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, letters of patronage bearing the Vatican's name gave Calvi's shell companies a shield no Italian regulator dared question, because who audits the church? But Calvi did not answer only to the church. He belonged to Propaganda Due, a secret Masonic lodge run by Lizio Gelli, a shadow network of nearly 1,000 generals, judges, and politicians plotting to reshape Italy from behind the curtain, a plan Gelli himself called the rebirth of democracy. Through Gelli and through disgraced banker Michele Sindona, Calvi's network brushed against the Sicilian mafia, whose narcotics profits needed exactly the kind of laundering machine his offshore banks provided. Vatican, Freemasonry, organized crime. One man sat at the center of all 3, and all 3 had reason to want him permanently silent. By 1981, the fraud began collapsing under its own weight. Calvi was convicted of illegal currency exports, yet protected long enough to return to his chairman's chair almost immediately, until Ambrosiano's stock crashed, and journalists began publishing detailed investigations asking where over $1 billion had gone. His secretary, Graziella Corrischer, died falling from a 4th-floor window one day before his own body was found in London, leaving behind a note cursing him for the ruin he had brought. Calvi fled Italy on a false passport, carrying documents he believed were his insurance, files detailing the Vatican's involvement. They were, instead, his death warrant, because telling frightened, powerful men you hold leverage over them is never protection. It is a deadline. British authorities first ruled his death a suicide within weeks. His family and independent forensic experts rejected that conclusion immediately, and a second inquest returned an open verdict later that same year. It took until 1998, 16 years later, before a full exhumation and forensic re-examination proved what many had long suspected. There was no bruising consistent with a man climbing scaffolding alone, no residue on his hands from the bricks in his pockets. It was murder, staged beneath a bridge whose very name echoed the black-robed Freemasons who may have orchestrated his fall. 5 men eventually stood trial, including a Sicilian mafia boss and a fixer who had traveled with Calvi during his final flight. In 2007, every one of them walked free, the court certain a murder had occurred, unable to prove beyond doubt who had given the order. 40 years later, no one has ever been convicted of killing Roberto Calvi. The Vatican paid over $200 million to Ambrosiano's creditors without ever admitting legal guilt. Marcinkus died in Arizona, shielded to the end by sovereign immunity. Gelli died in 2015, still surrounded by unanswered questions. The truth was never hidden by one hand alone, but buried by dozens, each one only protecting its own small corner of the story. When the church, the mob, and a secret brotherhood all had reason to want one man's silence forever, does it really matter which of them tied the knot?